From the snowy mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to listen to our archives, we have them free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button as well. You can now watch this show live on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Catch us live right in the room right now. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to the guitar god Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Since it's Women's History Month, our guest tonight, cryptid writer Varla Ventura, and I decided we would touch on a few incredible women who use the psychic arts to evaluate or elevate their status in society, especially during the late Victorian and Edwardian eras. We are also going to get into how witchcraft, medicine, psychic arts have been an outlet for women to define themselves and redefine themselves. Women have played a pivotal role in the makings of strange legends and folklore, like the drunken antics of the Fox sisters, the intensive investigation of Leonora Piper, who was said to channel something like 18 different personalities, and the outlaw Ida Craddock. Varla's website, varlaventura.net. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. The lovely and talented Varla Ventura, back every second month to hang on out with us. We love it when you're here, my friend. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm happy to be here. It's always a pleasure. Something I look forward to.
It's a pleasure that we got you back. It really is a pleasure because, you know, it's hard to find chemistry. Like when you're on this side of the microphone, it is very difficult to find chemistry with someone, especially when they are a returning guest. And we're very fortunate here because not only with you, we have John Tenney, David Weatherly, R. Keith Andrews, Butch Witkowski, Samantha Mowat. We have a number of regulars who come in every couple of months or every month. And to have you part of that group, it just feels like meeting up with family again. So thank you so much.
Oh, and thank you. I couldn't agree more. I'm among many esteemed guests on your show, and I also love the audience. I always get a little feedback after the show from your listeners, which is unique. Not every show actually allows that much interaction, or you never know. As you well know, radio can be lonely. You're just hearing the sound of your own voice or the host's voice. You really don't know if people are listening. And with your show, there's a lot more interaction. So I actually get feedback sometimes during the show.
Well, you know what? And one of your fans and one of our fans, Marty on Twitter, who goes by @RetiredSkeptic, He's a Vietnam veteran. We love him around here. We always want to make sure that he is doing well. He's got some VA tests today, or he had them today, and he's going back tomorrow for more tests. We love Marty. We want to send Marty a bunch of love and admiration and good healing for him because he's literally here almost every night when he's feeling good and tuning on in, and he's a big fan of yours. So I know you wanted to give him a shout out as well, Varla.
Yes, I want to say I love you, Marty, and don't worry, there'll be plenty of time for snark in the future. We'll miss your hilarious instant gifs and memes and such. But good, speedy recovery to you. I know you're listening, so just know that we really appreciate you, and we know that you will be here to harass us tomorrow as well.
Exactly. And you know what? That's a shout out to all the veterans out there. We love our veterans, and, you know, we're so thankful for everything that they do. Our veterans on my side of the border up in Canada, all the veterans in the United States and around the UK and Australia, mainly our listenership. And we absolutely love you. You've done a great job and continue to be awesome. That's all we could say. Continue to be awesome. Varla, we always have new listeners coming on in here and tuning us in and learning about our guests. So there might be new guests here and listeners that haven't really heard your story. You're one of the top writers in the cryptid folklore legend world out there. You're not self-published. You actually have a publisher who helps get your books out there. And how did you do it? How did you do it? Because with self-publishing today, so many people are, able to do it on their own, but you were able to break through.
Well, I'll just add one quick thing. I am the daughter of a Vietnam veteran, so I just want to thank you for the thankfulness. We do appreciate that very much as family members as well. And who knows, my dad might actually, he's probably not awake right now, but maybe he'll listen tomorrow on YouTube if my brother can hook him up.
Yes. Big shout out to your dad.
Yeah. So I actually, because I do talk about my mom a lot during interviews because she was such a heavy influence in terms of the occult, but my father is a very unique and very witty man, and he volunteered to go to Vietnam, so that tells you something about the kind of person he is. Probably crazy, a bit crazy, but that's okay. Crazy, brave, it's kind of the same thing. But for me, with publishing and writing, it really was just sort of about the timing. I actually started interning at a book publisher, and it was just before ebooks. It was really Amazon. Did it exist? I'm not sure it existed. It might have started to exist within the years following that. I had been interning, and then I started doing a little editing on the side, and then I sort of wormed my way in and said, I've got some book ideas. And the publisher was very open to those and liked a lot of, what I had said about it was an occult publisher. So that helped. So I just happened to hit the time before really, people were self-publishing then, and Amazon was sort of on the rise. There were still independent bookstores, but Amazon rose very quickly and put a lot of booksellers out of business rather quickly, and quickly became, within the 10 years or so, from like the time of my first book and, the several books later, the dynamics have changed so much. Now I'm like 6 books in, and Amazon is actually one of the primary sources for authors, and publishing has changed. Self-publishing doesn't look as funky and crappy as it used to. Really, you could tell. I could tell a book a mile away if it had been self-published, not without even opening it. That's not necessarily the case now, because I think a lot of talented people have come forward to kind of, share their skills and set up programs for people. And it does kind of cut out some of the, I guess, the middleman. But I love the middleman, that the publishing house between the public and the author. It's a really wonderful thing to have, because you get a lot of people telling you you're wrong or you're right. And for a writer, a creative person, that can be a very vital thing. So for me, that's kind of the only problem with self-publishing, is you're not always self-editing. And I need a lot of self-editing, topic-wise, presentation-wise. So I just, honestly, it was really luck. It was just luck and open-mindedness with some of the women that I worked with, and everything sort of falling into place at once. And because the first couple of books that I did with this publisher did well, I was able to work on some other things that were, more in the cryptid world, which were things that I had long loved. So somehow I managed to publish 6 books that I actually that I actually enjoy reading, which I'm not saying that to sound like, oh, my books are just that wonderful, but they're topics that mean a lot to me. They're people's stories that people have shared with me. Lifelong friends who have told me their ghost stories over and over again have allowed me to rewrite those and put those into the book. And, some of my favorite fairy and folklore and creatures and things like that. And it's just led me down this somewhat remarkable path because I've met so many interesting people and heard even more stories along the way. It's really kind of self-perpetuating. The more you write about and research these types of topics, the more people reach out to you and recommend things, or you're on a show and they recommend a writer or a fellow researcher or something like that. So, but as far as like getting into publishing, I don't know if I were the same person trying to do what I did then now that I would have as much success. I just got really lucky, and I'm by no means a best-selling author. I barely make ends meet, to be perfectly honest. It's a labor of love, but it's it's better than nothing, right? So it's really remarkable that sometimes I just think, how did this even happen? Or I'm going to be totally honest here. I frequently pick up my book from, maybe Fairies, Pookas, and Changelings, or I just picked up Paranormal Parlor this evening to kind of go through the chapter where I had written about a lot of women in the spiritualist movement, and found a couple sections that I had forgotten about. So sometimes I read my own work and think, wow, I must have just been really immersed in that research, because some of this stuff just kind of came out. And then, I never listened to my own radio interviews. I don't like to watch the television segments or things like that I've done, but I will read a book that I've written, but it usually takes me 2 or 3 years to go back and actually read the book, because I think, part of it is fear and part of it is you just worked so hard on it that you feel like you just need to take a mental break from it. And then there's this fear when it's in print that you did something wrong. And so it sometimes takes me a while to get back to actually reading something that I've written. So my mom's been reading my mermaid book again. And she called me up and said, that part where you were talking about, and she mentioned this one story. And I remembered the story, but she said, there's this great introduction to it where you're talking about this particular creature. And I had to get the book. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, Ma. Hold on a second. I haven't read that since I wrote it in 2013.
I'm the same way. Same way. Because you're your own worst critic. Like, even I don't go back and listen to my own shows because I can't even stand it. Not that I think I put back a bad product, but you're your own worst critic. And you hear your spelling mistakes or your pronunciation mistakes. You read your spelling mistakes. You're like, damn it, how did I forget that question? Or how did I forget to put that in? It's terrible, isn't it?
It really is. It's the plight of the artist, really. I mean, probably everybody has their own self-critic in whatever way. But I think when you are a creative person and you're kind of trying to put yourself out there in the creative field, I mean, authors, for example, are the most extroverted introverts you'll ever meet. They want people to read them. They want to be a household name, but Lord, they do not want you to know who they are when they're walking down the street. It's different. You don't necessarily want or need to be recognized. And sometimes it even, you just want to write enough that people buy enough of your work that you can continue to write. That's kind of, for me as a writer, that's my end game. It's not to have everybody recognize my picture from the back of the jacket. It's to just make it so that I can continue to write. And that in itself is full of challenges. But yeah, you have that that critic. I know a lot of painters who are, you know, incredibly. I mean, they're incredible painters, and they're so critical of their own work because they don't see this incredible mural that they've created. They see the one little line where the nose is just off, that they tried to get it right, and what you have to do really is you really have to learn to kind of take that compliment and not combat it with you don't that's the big challenge. Yeah, I really like that book, but did you notice the typo in the cover? You don't say that. It's just say thank you. Yes, would you like me to sign it for you? Or you don't say, oh, you want to buy my painting for $5,000? Oh, great. Did you see where I like made the nose kind of funky there? You still want to buy it, but you think that inside, but you don't necessarily say it. So it's hard to be. That's why you need marketers, right? That's why you need marketing people, because they make you feel better about who you are.
Oh yes.
I need a publicist.
And trying to find someone that will do it pretty cheaply is very, very tough. Very tough. But let's start to move on here, because it is Women's History Month, and this is a subject that is very, very important to you. And considering when we make the turn for the next half hour of the show, we're going to start getting into some of these stories. Women have played a significant role in the paranormal, supernatural type world out there, going back for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But it's usually the men we hear about. It's the men that were the ones who were off conquering foreign lands and trying to map out different countries and finding places, running into creatures, fighting grizzly bears with their bare hands and a Bowie knife. And yet women have made such an amazing contribution as well. You know, why is this topic important to you, to bring out the history of some of these paranormal stories regarding women?
Well, I always find it interesting to, of course, I relate to women who have rebelled or gone against the stream to a certain extent, and I think that Women's History Month definitely can highlight that. But I do think that women have always played a very important role in the development of spirituality and the development of magic. They have been, dragged through the mud and hung by the tree and burned at the stake for their contributions, but their contributions remain nonetheless. And this is not meant to say, because I do think that there are a lot of men and very incredible people who have contributed to the evolution of magic, witchcraft, spiritualism, and continue to do so today, people of all genders. And I think, but for me, I like to think about the importance of how magic, not just women in magic, but what magic or the spiritualist movement or the paranormal has done for women in society, and sort of given them an outlet, sometimes in places where they don't have it. And I think that today you don't have quite as many. If you think of, the paranormal shows out there that are popular on TV, or the paranormal radio shows. Radio, I would say there are a lot more women in the paranormal community, and writers. There are a lot of wonderful writers. But I would say, even in television and sort of ghost hunting and things like that tends to be, or as it rose to popularity in the last 20 years, tends to be more male dominated, and the women would sort of play a sidekick role or a psychic role in which they sort of come in for mediumship. But that's not meant to say that the men aren't doing it right. I think what's really important is that women's contribution is significant, and it has a uniqueness to it that has really helped us evolve in our understanding of what it means to trust our instincts and to trust our mediumship and to sort of go to the next level with our spiritual understanding. From usually when you think of spirituality, or the majority of people think of spirituality or religion, they think of priests. You don't necessarily think of priestesses unless you were raised by a witch like I was, and then that's all you think of.
But that brings up a good point, Varla. That brings up a good point as we got about just over 2.5 minutes left before we go to break. All we ever hear of from the past with women is about witchcraft, witchery, being witches. We don't hear the explorers. We don't hear the people who were looking for Yeti in the mountains or Bigfoot or trying to track down, monsters. Granted, that wasn't considered a woman's role back then, but there were still those who were explorers, and exploring is human nature.
Yes, and I've got a couple tonight to tell you about a fearsome pirate queen and a rather well-to-do lady who ended up adventuring on the high seas and found many different spiritual paths around the world, in particular in North and South America, and then traveled back to England and turned them all into short stories. So there were women, but they weren't always, they weren't always written about or had the means to really contribute. There's not surprisingly women behind many of the greatest events in history. But that's not always been at the forefront of what we're learning. And thankfully, things have really changed, I think, in particular with the last, 2-3 generations of kids who are growing up not thinking that way. They don't have all the baggage that perhaps your generation and, our generation has from our own parents and grandparents. They're kind of moving past. Their grandparents are the feminists. Their grandparents are the revolutionaries. So there's a lot of change in that way. But yeah, there are plenty of outrageous, rebellious, spiritual women that we'll hear about tonight.
I'm looking forward to it. I feel like I'm going to get schooled tonight. I really do.
Well,
is that the case? That seemed like a little bit of a sinister laugh there.
Get your slate and your chalk out, and everything you'll be taking notes.
Right. We're going to be pushing the planchette of the Varla Ventura Ouija board tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Varla comes in every couple of months to hang out with us, say hello, tell us about her books, her research. Tonight, we're going to get into some intriguing stories. And we're going to start off with a little witchery, channeling, and go from there, because it's going to be a good night with Varla Ventura. Her website, varlaventura.net. Stay tuned. More Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you'd know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Hello everyone. This is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines Report on the Spaced Out Radio website, and let's figure out what's going on together.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. Want to remind you, if you want to watch us live during the broadcast or check out our archives for free, go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button, or if you're in the chat room or watching like you are right now, give us a thumbs up. We would appreciate that. Also, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and keeping up to date on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. By the way, Captain Shirk, I know you're listening. We're sending you some love tonight. She had a friend pass away tonight, and I'm feeling bad for her because she does so much for us. But we're sending you love, Captain. Sending you love. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking Women's History Month of the paranormal, the strange, and the supernatural. Her website, varlaventura.net. So, Varla, welcome back to the show.
Why, thank you. It's like I never left.
It's always that way. It's always that way. All right. You know, you have some interesting topics you want to talk about tonight, and I'm always excited because you're just brilliant that way. Brilliant. Let's go back in time to the Victorian and Edwardian eras, where psychic arts were considered taboo, yet everybody was participating to see about their addiction to life after death.
Yeah, well, I'll take you back to sort of the spiritualist movement, which really came into popularity in about the mid-1800s and sort of petered out in terms of being very popular in about the 1930s. Now, it's still practiced today, so it's not non-existent. But the spiritualist movement specifically was the idea that you could, not only could you make contact with the deceased and spiritual entities and beings from the afterlife and other planets, you could also, that you did that because they had a message for us specifically. Not surprisingly, the spiritualist movement became incredibly popular in the United States after the Civil War. So, you know, the Civil War was 1861 to 1865, almost month to month. It was like April of 1861 to May of 1865. And it left a absolute bloody mess, and it left many, many households with no idea what had happened to their sons, their husbands, their fathers. So the spiritualist movement was already sort of taking hold in the United States, but it was really this kind of collective, it's my belief that this collective grief kind of elevated it as far as it becoming more of a movement. We were really looking for answers. There was also a great deal of desperation. And with that, you had the full spectrum. This was also around the time that people were experimenting with photography. And so you had spirit photography, some of which may have been legitimate, but much of which was later debunked because it really was things that we didn't understand about the way that the camera was reading pictures or strange movements and things like that. So you really had a number of factors and a kind of a nation in mourning, and you had a woman in the White House who had lost a child and who had suffered quite a bit. And as we know, sort of the figureheads in any nation can set trends. And Mary Todd Lincoln was not immune to that. And she actually had conducted a seance, or at least one seance that we know of in the White House. So you have, the papers talking about that. And so meanwhile, across the nation, you have the very beginnings of the women's suffragist movement. You have the idea that women should actually vote, that they actually had a say, an equal say, which was a pretty radical idea in 1870. Out of this, you had many very interesting characters who kind of evolved from their own position and their own times. And so just as an umbrella, I think that the spiritualist movement and the psychic arts gave women a voice and gave them a way to sort of express and become famous or say something in public that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to had they maintained the regular confines of that sort of Victorian society. We're talking about a time when it was rebellious to show your ankles. So it's to think of a woman who was arrested for distributing lewd materials to the United States Postal Service. That is a pretty extreme times. So that's just
dangerous.
Sort of the very dangerous to show an ankle or distribute lewd materials, as we know. So that's sort of the times that we're looking at, that kind of encompassing the spiritualist movement, but also these other important historical events that were taking place. And so that we have like a whole cast of characters. I can just dive right into. Now we have I believe, Dave, you and I have talked about Emily Grant Hutchings and her channeling the Ouija board. I think our last conversation, we got more into the Ouija and sort of channeling in general. And I know Emily came up because, just to refresh anyone who wasn't listening last time or hasn't read about it in my book, she was a woman who claimed to channel the last novel of Mark Twain via the Ouija board after he had died. And she composed this entire novel, this quite long, at least 80,000 word novel about a young apprentice printer and some various mishaps that they go through. And but the really interesting part about the whole story was that she claimed that she had gone into the seance and the ghost of Twain said, she's the one. And the medium identified her as the scribe, and they painstakingly spent a year scribing from the Ouija board this novel, which was then published. And then Mark Twain's publisher sued the publisher who had put her novel out because for copyright infringement, actually. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court because she said that it really was Twain, and they said you can't use the name Mark Twain because, of course, that was his pen name. Right. And she had put it on the subtitle. And, so anyway, it was ripped from the stands after being published, and a handful of copies survived that you can actually see the full facsimile of it in the Gutenberg Library online. I think it's still there. It was there a few years ago. So we kind of talked about her. She's a very interesting character, and but for her backstory, she was a struggling journalist. There's quite a bit of evidence to suggest that she had gone to see Twain speak on more than one occasion. She may have attended the World's Fair or been out in the San Francisco area when he was there. There are some letters that are supposed to be in the UC Berkeley archives that are sort of an exchange between her and Twain, in which she's sort of asking him for writing advice. So here's a woman who is struggling, and she has a friend whose given name is Pearl Coran. They are both, Emily and Pearl are friends. They live in St. Louis. They're kind of from the same circle. Pearl is about 20 years older than Emily, but they're basically St. Louis housewives, circa 1910. And this is right at the peak when it was quite common for especially people who had a parlor to entertain traveling psychics and traveling spiritualists and mediums. And there were many, many spiritualists and mediums, both male and female. But again, you had traveling women who were allowed to travel on their own, women who were traveling on their own, performing, being invited into homes, being taken care of, being paid, and they were independent. They were not sort of forced to be one of the handful of choices, which was like a housewife, a whore. That was another option. A school teacher, which you only did until you got married, or maybe a nurse. There was some. Your choices were pretty limited. You were expected essentially to be a wife and mother, and if you weren't those things, or even if you were those things, you were expected to stay at home and either have somebody cook your husband's food for you if you're really well-to-do and you oversaw it and had tea with the ladies and didn't speak out of turn, or you went completely all out and you became an entertainer. But there are a lot of women that kind of fell in between the realm of entertainment and the realm of housewifery. So they were women that actually were perfectly reasonably behaved members of society that also occasionally dropped into trance and wrote epic novels and poems. So Emily.
Yeah.
Oh, please stop.
Well,
me.
I was just gonna ask you about this. I mean, at that time, was it not taboo because of the religious side of society back then to be announcing that you were someone who could bring in communication with the other side?
That is a very interesting point, and something that I find incredibly fascinating about the spiritualist movement. It was not then, nor is it now, in conflict with Christianity. And especially in the United States in the post-Civil War era, it wasn't in conflict with Christianity. Today, I think we think of it as people are channeling with a Ouija board and therefore they're invoking the devil. And certainly there were people clutching their pearls and saying, I would never do that. But there were a lot of people who were part of that movement who went to church, who went to a psychic salon on a Saturday and went to church on Sunday and knew their Bible and quoted it and intermingled it. So it wasn't as black and white as you either are a supernaturalist or you're a Christian, which I find very interesting. And I think there's probably a lot more to unpack and explore about that, because if you think about certainly in those early days of the pioneers coming to the U.S. and to Canada and sort of traveling out west, and you had different religious sects. You had the Quakers. Some people thought the Quakers were absolutely insane. I mean, they were Quakers because they would quake and they would quiver and they would go into trance. So you would think that there would be more conflict. And yet, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't always like, oh yeah, that lady's she's some sort of vaudevillian medium. We're not going to invite her over to tea. But there was less conflict than you would think. And it was a lot of people, especially because, again, you had Mary Todd Lincoln. She's the first lady, and she's doing this sort of thing. So it became much more socially acceptable and not necessarily, I mean, it's like reading a romance novel. It became kind of a thing that you would do and you wouldn't necessarily talk about unless you were the novelist or unless you were the spiritualist, and then you were at the forefront of the movement. So we have this Emily, who's done this thing with the Ouija board, and we have her neighbor Pearl Coran. And Pearl Coran was most famous for, well, nobody knew who Pearl Coran was, to be honest. They knew Patience Worth. Patience Worth was the pen name or the name of the entity that Pearl Coran channeled. And she wrote novels and she wrote many volumes of poetry and actually was given many accolades and was even poet laureate for a while, not as Pearl Coran, but as Patience Worth. So as a writer and as a woman and as a sort of, supernaturalist, I find her particularly interesting because I don't know if she channeled once and was like, hey, everybody now is like listening to me and I can actually publish under the name of a woman, because this is a time when women weren't widely published at all and they often published under male pen names. Or if it was completely legitimate and she just went into stream of consciousness and tapped her muse, which is entirely valid. I myself have done that. Aleister Crowley built a whole religion on doing that. So that wasn't that's not an unheard of method for coming up with creativity. So, but what's very interesting is that she had a lot of success as Patience Worth. It was Emily who brought Pearl to her very first seance. And Patience went on to have a great deal of success. And unfortunately, Emily sort of, is now one for the archives because of the great controversy that surrounded her claiming that it was Mark Twain. Patience Worth never channeled anyone. Pearl Coran never channeled anyone famous. She channeled Patience Worth. She was a solitary entity that had messages for those of us on Earth. And I actually I had mentioned earlier that I kind of reread my own stuff, and I was reminded of this other woman around the same time in France, and her name was Helene Smith. And this might really kind of blow the minds of some of your listeners, but she was actually one of the first people, and we're talking about probably 1880 in France, where she started talking about going off planet and actually going to Mars and returning with messages from Martians. So she was a very early, either a very early science fiction writer, under the guise of a spiritualism, or really one of the first kind of people to explore the idea of off planet, leaving her body and channeling and going on. She also channeled Victor Hugo and Marie Antoinette. So kind of all over the map there. But that's a significant contribution, because anyone who is part of what you might consider the New Age or the new spiritualist movement today will know that, talking about going off planet, I mean, that really didn't become a topic again until maybe the 1960s, and then again in the 2000s when people started talking about it again. So, and I say that as somebody who was sort of working in the publishing world at the time and seeing this sort of rise in the discussion of going off planet. But meanwhile, young Helene Smith and in France was in between channeling Marie Antoinette and Victor Hugo, was going off planet to Mars, and she had some messages when she returned as well. And I think I actually have those here.
We got about 4 minutes here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight. You mentioned about going off planet. Was that a big topic back then, or was it more? So that was, I mean, it was taboo to say that you were, trying to conjure spirits. But I mean, you had to be getting ready for the insane asylum back then if you were talking about going off-world on a spaceship.
I think that she didn't go on a spaceship. And I think that is probably that if she had been saying that in like the 1920s in the U.S., she probably would have been institutionalized, certainly by the 1930s. But this was in 1894. So this is. I'm going to just read you this little excerpt of what she did, because she gained a reputation for being the muse of automatic writing. But in 1894, she stunned the attendants in her circle by claiming that she was able to go off planet. She was really one of the only people, to my knowledge, that was talking about it this early, and this was not a regular topic of conversation in the spiritualist movement necessarily. Like off planet was something entirely different. And she said in November 1894, the spirit of the entranced medium, not without threatening of seasickness through the cosmic void, arrived eventually on the planet Mars. So she didn't travel by spaceship. She traveled by astral projection. And what she discovered is that thereafter, night after night, she described to the listening circle the people of our neighboring planet, their food, dress, and ways of life. At times, she drew pictures of the inhabitants, human and animal, of their houses, bridges, and other edifices, and of the surrounding landscape. Later, she both spoke and wrote freely in the Martian language. Now, there's no one to vet this, right, or counter her, because no one's been to Mars, especially at this point. From the writings reproduced in the book, it is clear that the characters of the Martian script are unlike any in use on Earth, and that the words of which a translation is furnished bear no resemblance, superficially at least, to any known tongue. The spirits, for several dwellers upon Mars and Helene's organism to speak and write through, delivered from themselves with freedom and fluency. This is a man named, William something. Well, it's not Men's History Month, so his name was William. That's all we'll say. That's all I got right now. He was writing, he had attended one of her trances and he was a journalist and was sort of recording this. And in fact, Martian, as used by the entranced Helene, has many characteristics of a genuine language. And it is not surprising that some of the onlookers who may have hesitated over the authenticity of the other revelations were apparently convinced that these Martian utterances were beyond the common order of nature. And she traveled around and then, kind of went on to do seances and, became actually a pretty accomplished painter. So she died in 1929. So she sort of made her living in her name as the first, I think, probably one of the first people to really talk about the Martians. But
beautiful.
Real sci-fi fans out there can see if they can find a earlier than 1894 example.
Well, on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. She comes on every couple of months to hang out, talk all things weird, strange, folklorish, legendary, just like her books, which can be found on We Read the Night on our website. VarlaVentura.net is her website as well. You can get her books there. More Spaced Out Radio in Hour 2 coming up.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales. where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spicing up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thieme. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to say hello to our brand new affiliate, KZAX, 94.9 FM in Bellingham, Washington, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we're proud to broadcast on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free or watch the show live on youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor and hit that subscribe button. The birthday boy, the Desert Clam, has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is, let me find it here. Where'd you put it there, Clam? Plerophory. Plerophory is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as Birthday Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight we are talking with Varla Ventura. She is here every couple of months for Our Cryptid World. We're taking a little bit of a different turn tonight as we are talking about Women's History Month in the paranormal. Varla, her website, varlaventura.net. Make sure you check it on out. You can grab her books there, go to Amazon, or grab them off our site. Varla, welcome back to the show.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome. You are welcome. Let's continue on, shall we? Ouija boards.
Let's.
Ouija boards. Are we communicating with the dead? Are there famous women out there from the past who are known channelers using the Ouija board?
So Emily is one of the most well-known, Emily Grant Hutchings, in terms of actually using the board to communicate. There are a lot of mediums that have used the board but haven't necessarily been known for it. I find there's a couple of women that did some major trance work that didn't involve any kind of board at all. And one of them was this incredible woman named Leonora Piper. And I immediately fell for this woman because when the first thing I read about her was a pamphlet that said the investigation into the cyclical research of Leonora Piper. And the name Leonora Piper just sounded very grand to me. She lived from 1857 to 1950, actually. And she has a really interesting backstory. And it definitely, one thing I do kind of want to say is that there are many instances, we've kind of talked about this with folklore before, where something that would be identified as a creature or a changeling or some kind of fairy-like or otherworldly being, today we may have other definitions for that. It may be something like a birth defect, but there were times when folklore sort of created a role for some of these, or an outcast role in many cases, but a role for some people. And I only say that because Leonora Piper is particularly interesting because she was diagnosed with a brain tumor at a pretty young age. I believe she was about 30, which I guess in the mid 1800s, and the turn of the century wasn't that young. But she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and not long after being diagnosed with the brain tumor, she attended a seance. And once she went to this seance, she immediately slipped into trance and went on to regularly go into trance. She channeled Johann Sebastian Bach, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, I think Abe Lincoln, and she also had a couple of personalities that she went into trance and spoke as other people with other languages. She was English and lived in England, and she would occasionally be a young Italian peasant girl. She would sometimes be this commodore who was this really wealthy Italian billionaire. These are all, people who had died, of course. And then I think she also had a couple of like French or sort of like Polynesian characters that came and went. And if you've never heard of it before, there is actually a Society for Cyclical Research, and that's a tongue twister if you see it written especially. And these are societies that were set out with the rise of the spiritualist movement to sort of debunk to debunk these people who were saying they were mediums. And the idea behind it was that it was the Society of True Believers. And so in order to maintain the integrity of cyclical research, psychic research, they needed to debunk anyone who was making these claims. This sort of, you can kind of blame the Fox sisters for that. And we can talk about the wonderful sort of drunken history of the Fox sisters in a little bit. But Leonora Piper was investigated by this society for, I think, like 14 years. They would regularly attend her trances. They would take notes over this long period of time. They would compare notes and see if the storylines matched up. And they would ask her questions and try and trip her up. And they would sometimes poke her with things like little pins and things like that to see if she would respond when she was in trance. And she never did. And so finally, after these years and years of investigating her, they declared that she was authentic. And still to this day, of course, there's a great deal of debate about that. But she was finally sort of left alone, and they stopped pricking her with sewing needles and things like that. But pretty incredible story there.
Talk to us about the legend of Ida Craddock.
Oh, you'll love that. She was an absolute sexual outlaw. This is sort of what she's known for. Ida Craddock, she lived from 1857 to 1902. So you do the math. She was very young when she died. And Ida Craddock was persecuted by a man named Anthony Comstock. Anthony Comstock was the head of the Society for the Suppression of moral vice. So this was a man who was making sure that nobody was having any fun whatsoever on his watch. And he was a very wealthy man, and he did not like Ida Craddock. Her crime was that she was, and how he actually ended up getting an arrest warrant for her, is that he said that she was distributing lewd materials, and eventually they got her because she was distributing them through the U.S. Postal Service, which was a federal crime. And so they were able to actually extradite her and put her on trial and convict her. What was she distributing? She had in the little advertisements in the back of the catalogs and the occasional paper, and it said, send $1 and I will send you, are you a young bride? Are you soon to be married? And she would distribute basically these little pamphlets that kind of described the wedding night. Now, that might sound like a little risque, but really, and it was very risque for the time, but really, she was just talking about, we're talking about young women who were virgins, had no experience whatsoever with men, and were being married off often to much older men who had plenty of experience with women. And she was doing her part to try and say, okay, this is what you should do. This is what your husband would expect of you. This is how to look at it in as educational and somewhat veiled way as she could. It's not that explicit, but it's also very subservient. When I read it as a modern woman, I was like, this isn't. This is pretty subservient. She wasn't saying, don't obey men. She was saying, hey, you have this is what's going to happen. There's, keep yourself clean, be ready. Like there were some basic things that she said there that, if you read between the lines, you can figure it out. Well, apparently Anthony Comstock was reading between the lines. I mean, he was probably collecting all of these in his own bathroom. So the other thing, but why Ida Craddock kind of comes into play in terms of the spiritualist movement and how she came onto my radar was not actually through this amazing act of defiance against Anthony Comstock and her goal. I mean, she was basically sex education in 1870. She's providing sex education in an environment in which, I mean, you think about like the Little House on the Prairie books that later Laura Ingalls went back and wrote. And even when she wrote them in the teens and 20s, in the 30s, she never mentioned that they go to the bathroom, let alone what Ma and Pa did in bed at night. Like, it was just not talked about.
Oh,
so,
my goodness.
I know. I'm just ruined Little House on the... I just totally ruined it for everyone. I'm sorry. But terrible visions. Visions in the straw tick bed. So anyway, so Ida Craddock, what was particularly amazing about her, and she came on into my attention because I was actually reading through this series of publications that Aleister Crowley would put out. He put out this kind of like magazine, kind of more of like a zine or a journal that was called The Equinox. And The Equinox is now, I was reading it in all kind of at once in this 2-volume collection. And it was full of all kinds of things. It was his teachings. It was interviews with people. It was, scathing reviews of his own work. He was very inventive with it. And I was lucky enough to read through it with someone named Lon Milo Duquette, who's sort of one of the most renowned Crowley scholars. And he has a wonderful sense of humor. And so he would kind of point out, and I would find these Easter eggs and ask him about it and say, hey, is this actually Aleister Crowley? So anyway, I came upon this portion about Ida Craddock. And around that same time, I was introduced to a man named Veer Chappell, who had written an article about Ida Craddock. And then he went on to write an entire book about her, at which I read voraciously and absolutely adored. It's actually called Sexual Outlaw, Erotic Mystic or something like that. So Ida Craddock claimed that all of this knowledge that she got about the marriage and the marital bed she was herself not married and had never consummated any kind of marriage with anyone other than an angelic being. And I believe his name was Soph. And she would, basically, he would come into her bedroom at night and he would give her all of this existential knowledge, which was very holistic and included, included sexuality in with everything else and the place in the world. And so she would write these teachings down. So in addition to having the marital bed and these sort of like $1 pamphlets, she also wrote a few essays called the spiritual, I think it was the spiritual bridegroom and things like that. Now later, and the reason this comes into the Aleister Crowley world is that later after, because he was older and was, Crowley was really writing like the Equinox in the 30s. He had also found these works by Ida Craddock, and in his own, if you don't know this about Aleister Crowley, his whole teachings came from channeling, basically. Channeling. He was in a temple in a pyramid in Egypt and dropped into trance and channeled the Book of the Law, which is what, people who follow the OTO and the teachings of Crowley, they follow this Book of the Law, which is actually quite a beautiful thing to read if you've never read it. It's like a wonderful long poem that gives you a lot of things to think about in terms of your place in the world. Anyway, so he saw Ida Craddock, and he actually, was thought that her works were amazing, and he sort of reprinted them in the Equinox, and then went on to make her an honorary, I think, honorary member of the OTO, and he bumped her up to like 4th ranking, which I'm not a member of the OTO, so I've never had to go through the process, but it's quite difficult to get to the 4th ranking without having ever done anything other than be authentic. Now, the sad part comes in with Ida Craddock. She was persecuted by Anthony Comstock. He pulled her in on federal charges. She lost her trial and was sentenced to life in an institution. And rather than spend the rest of her life in an insane asylum, she took her own life. She hung herself, and she left 2 letters when she died. She left a letter to her mother, giving her, releasing her mother of any blame. And she left a letter to Anthony Comstock, totally calling him out and basically saying, your ridiculous behavior, my blood is on your hands. It was a beautiful, beautiful letter. And in Veer's book, he has he's got the entire letter in there and tells the story in much greater detail than that. So that's our most impressive Ida Craddock and our greatest sexual outlaw of, 1800s.
Imagine, though, being charged for teaching women about sex.
Yeah. Teaching women that they have something that they already have.
Yeah.
And actually trying to just reassure them not to be afeared. So, you had asked earlier about the conflict between maybe Christianity or religion and spiritualism. And I don't know that Ida Craddock identified as a spiritualist. I think she had an affair with an angelic being. So by rights, she became known in the spiritualist community. But I don't know that she identified as that. I think it's complex why he was so completely fixated on her. She was she was a young woman, and he was a wealthy older man. He was very, very adamant. And I do wonder how much of that was also he claimed it was because of the sexual education, but I do wonder if he had his hands on some of the other the magical works. And if that offended him more greatly, but nobody was going to care if he walked around, because it was, 1900s and the U.S. So those witch trial days were over. Those were a thing of the past. You weren't going to hang someone for magic. So he went after her for the next best thing, which was sex. Anyway, there's a lot to unpack with that whole story, and I think a lot more that I don't really know about his backstory and how he came to be so obsessed. And she was not the only person that he persecuted, of course. But imagine being given that choice of life, not just life in prison, but life in an asylum, which life in many, many women were institutionalized for, having miscarriages, for having postpartum depression, for not fitting into the idea of marrying old farmer Jackson or whatever kind of fate you were put to. I had a relative that was institutionalized, and the story is there was a barn that burned down, and she was never right after that. But I have often wondered who set that fire, because why would you institutionalize someone because they couldn't quite, handle that a barn had burned down? I'm pretty confident she set fire to that barn with the intention of killing whoever was inside, and was then institutionalized and died in an institution in San Antonio. So women were institutionalized for having thoughts and opinions. And this was not that long ago. My relative was institutionalized in the 1935. So not a terribly long time ago. So we're not talking about what Harvey Weinstein kind of institution here, where you get 4-star prison. We're talking about, really, really dire conditions where you're essentially left to rot, but consciously. So her decision was probably what really made her so legendary in many ways.
Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got just about less than a minute to go, or just over a minute to go here before we go to break at the bottom of the hour. Varla, with this revolution and her committing suicide, this was really her last act of doing something for her in taking a stand. Because if she did it in prison, well, then people could blame the harsh conditions of prison.
Right. Yeah. She really, and don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating suicide as a means of freedom, but I think she could have done it. She could have done it in prison, but it's the letter. It's the letter that she left Anthony Comstock. She just didn't let him off the hook because she fought him. That's the thing, is he persecuted her for I think 8 years or something.
Right.
And she fought him. And she was able to fight back, and she fought back. And when he finally got her on that technicality of the U.S. federal, the federal offense distributing through the U.S. mail, she still fought back. And the way she fought back was by leaving this letter that described to everyone what had happened. And her mother kept that letter and published it.
Interesting.
For the world to see.
And good that she did. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. At a request, Varla, from Goddess Michelle on Twitter, she wants to learn about the ancient mermaids and the women among the water. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver. the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
We're bringing you something new to the documentary world. Beyond the Spectrum will take you on an historic tour of topics like no other: Sasquatch, UFOs, government secrecy, and more, keeping you on the edge of your seats through the eyes of legendary truth seekers like Steve Bassett, Richard Dolan, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and Jack Kasher. Head on over to Amazon Prime or Tubi TV and check us out. Please leave a comment for the filmmakers on their film's Amazon page.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Finish off your weekend and kick off your new week with me, Everett Themer, right here on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to bring you great guests, a little bit of snark, and plenty of information to think about. But don't worry, there's going to be plenty of woo as well. We are going to hit everything in the paranormal and supernatural, including the odd Psychic Sundays. So tune us in on Sunday, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind all of you that if you want to check out our free archives or watch our show live, you can go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Thumbs up as well. Thumbs up as well. And our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and catching up on all the news from Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Every couple of months, we have Our Cryptid World with author Varla Ventura. She has nice silky blonde hair to join us for tonight in her flannel pajamas, of course, since she's up really, really late. Varla's website, varlaventura.net. How you doing, Varla?
I told you they were moon and star sweatpants. I thought I clarified that at the beginning.
I forgot. Okay, fine. All right. I want to get into, before we get into mermaids, you wanted to touch on the Fox sisters.
Fox sisters, the fabulous Fox sisters. So these three sisters were probably responsible for both putting spiritualism on the map and being its ultimate downfall, which is quite a thing to have achieved in your lifetime. So there were three sisters: Leah, who was the eldest, Margaret, who was the middle, and Kate, who was the youngest. Margaret and Kate, when they were teenagers, really, started saying, and we're saying, they were born in the, Kate was born in 1837. So we're talking about probably 1840s. At the very beginning of what we think of as the spiritualist movement, again, pre-Civil War, they started doing things like table tipping, which is where everybody would sit around and they would put their hands on the table and they would try and get it to levitate. Parlor games, real paranormal parlor games. And they would, they became most famous for a series of rappings. And so they would make contact, and we say that within quotes, contact with the other world. And they would say, "Is there anyone in this room? Do you have a message for us?" And they would use this series of knocks to kind of get their answers. In fact, what we think of today as like a seance or sort of a session, you can attribute to this show that the Fox sisters would put on. So supposedly the two younger sisters, they started having some spiritual epiphanies and wanted to share them with the world. And they managed to convince their older sister, Leah, to help them take the show on the road. And they did this for many, many years. I have no doubt in my mind that the Fox sisters started out with the best of intentions. I do think that, especially with the youngest Fox sister, that she was very, probably very psychic and a very spiritual person, and did kind of had these ideas, and then maybe they would. I mean, like I myself first did the Ouija board with my own sister. That's how I really got into the Ouija. We were given it as a Christmas present, and my sister and we played with it regularly, and we made contact. We made contact with something saying it was a young girl whose grave turned out to be on the property next door. So the idea that these sisters were sort of playing with, they didn't have a Ouija board at the time, but they were playing with these kind of like paranormal parlor and spirit games. And I can say also, as a one of 4 sisters, that there are 5 sisters, actually. I found a new sister recently, that you have a certain connection. Siblings tend to have a connection, but sisters can really have a connection where you are thinking the same thoughts. So it's not unusual to have psychic talents passed from generation to generation, or within a family, or for people to be able to communicate in another way. You can read, being able to read someone's thoughts. It's the kind of common phrase. So anyway, the sisters, whatever their backstory is in authenticity, they take their show on the road. And they travel around the United States. They go also to Europe. They go to sort of all over the world, traveling and putting on this marvelous show. Now, the eldest sister, Leah, she managed the careers of her younger sisters. And they really became household names. There's a community in New York called Lilydale, and it's a spiritualist community. It still exists today. The Fox sisters really put that on the map. But interestingly enough, as I said, the spiritualist movement was really on the rise from about 1840 to 1930. But the Fox sisters really met their end in the 1850s, because the 2 sisters, the 2 younger sisters, Margaret and Kate, were drinkers. And eventually, the oldest sister, Leah, she got sort of tired of the whole thing. Now, one of them, I think it was Kate, had kids, and Leah wanted to take the kids. She said, you're a mess. I'm going to take the kids. And it completely upset Kate enough. So this is the story. I'll just read it directly from the book. Their world began to crumble when in 1851, a relative of theirs claimed publicly that she had assisted in a seance. It was a cousin, and that the wrappings were a hoax. The claims were not enough to ruin the careers of the legendary sisters, however, and they continued making money as much as mediums for a number of years. And they were wealthy. They had a lot of money, and they were traveling all over, staying in the finest hotels. They bought homes. They were, in fine clothes. They really made a lot of money. Again, here are 3 women who are independently wealthy outside of any man. But by 1888, the sisters were in quite a state. Kate's husband had passed away, and her drinking was out of control. Leah, the oldest sister, staged an intervention and implored Kate to remand care of the 2 children over to her elder sister, as Leah did not think Kate was fit to look after them. Then Kate, because she was mad at her sister, went to a reporter and admitted that the whole thing was a fake, and she got $1,500 for it. Later, she tried to take it back, but by then it was just too late. That, combined with the testimony of a cousin who had participated, sort of brought the Fox sisters down and really kind of left a very black mark on the spiritualist movement in general. And to this day, kind of, when we often think of psychics as being charlatans or having some kind of ulterior motive. And I think that the Fox sisters were sort of the first to really make a lot of money. And then Leah went on, she was fine. She was married, and she invested well or whatever, but the two other sisters died paupers. So it's kind of a sad but pretty fabulous story in its own way. The Fabulous Fox Sisters. That's the nutshell version. You could probably write a whole book just about them.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Do you think they were faking it, even though they took the money?
Oh, yeah. I think they were faking it. I don't think that they were faking it in the beginning. I think they had some probably legitimate experiences in the beginning. And then I think they saw something good. I mean, they were getting a lot of money, and they had their older sister was a excellent business manager. And again, this was a means of freedom. This was like being on stage without having to be the most beautiful actress or having the voice of an angel. This was a life that you could live on the road and be successful without having to do what your father tells you to do. So I could see the appeal of that.
Let's get to mermaids, because I know Goddess Michelle is waiting for this on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Female mermaids have played the sirens and have played the vicious attackers in playing with men's hearts.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because I think it's very interesting when we think of mermaids as these sort of temptresses. I think that in itself creates a view of how we look at women in terms of the folkloric record and spirituality and sensuality and magic. That there's a certain element to the mermaid lore and story that makes, at least upon cursory glance, makes the feminine a negative and something dangerous. But when you dig a little bit deeper and dive a little deeper, and you really get into the idea of these magical creatures, there are mermen as well who are just as vicious. But you also can understand that there's a relationship with people and water. So, nations around the world from time immemorial have had some kind of variation on a half human, half aquatic creature. And it has historically almost always been female, because it is equated with the divine feminine. So in a way, I think some early cultures understood something that, modern scientists have been trying to shouting from the rooftops, the evolution from water, from the primordial ooze. These are things that we understood to have evolved from the divine feminine. And what is more feminine than water? Water is completely controlled by the moon. The tides are controlled by the moon. The moon is equated with femininity and night and inner thoughts. And so too are mermaids. They are our deepest, darkest thoughts, and yet they are also this kind of incredible, sensual, and effervescent idea. So not only are there these legends of mermaids that drown and sing and bring us to our, watery graves, but there are also healers and guiders and the only way to provide sustenance. So some of the very, very earliest mermaid depictions are of fertility goddesses. And to show that this place where we find our abundance, the sea where we get our food and sustenance, that this is a place that gives us life and birth, and we equate that and we recognize the divine feminine within that. So I think that is the very core. I know Goddess Michelle's going to like this too, but that's the very core of that aspect of mermaids and aquatic beings. As we evolve with mermaids through time and through folklore, we do find a lot of danger. We do find a lot of temptation. to me, mermaids are that moment when you are completely lost in the rhythm of the sea and you're a little disoriented and you're also oxygen deprived. And that's a moment when you can see anything. Your eyes are open to anything. And that's when you might see a mermaid, which will probably rise you to the surface and save you. So we have an evolution from something that really actually had feet at one point, always had breasts and beautiful hair, evolved to something that looked more like a classic model, but was casually sitting on a rock. The elusive feminine that we're chasing after for, whatever your reason. The other thing is that mermaids, okay, there are mermen. There are lots of stories of the Merrow, the legendary, horrifying, vicious toothed beings that will grab you and drag you into the tide. But the stories that exist today are almost all of men falling for some half-naked woman tumbling into the sea. You do not hear stories of women falling half-naked, tumbling into the sea after a man. It's always the other way around, that the man sort of like innocently walking along the beach and then this temptress just appeared. So I think there's a lot of things metaphorically we can think about with our relationship with women and folklore in general. And thank you for allowing me to go off on this, because it is Women's History Month, and usually we just talk about the good spooky creatures and things like that, which are my favorite things. But I do think with mermaids, and I know that I've actually talked with Goddess Michelle about this kind of idea of where we place our femininity and how we look at mermaids as these elusive, magical creatures, and kind of how we look at women in folklore in general. So, not trying to ruin it or anything, but sometimes we look at things in a sort of classical Disney fashion, and we don't realize that what they're really representing. And I say that in complete defense of the idea that mermaids are dangerous and terrifying, just as women are dangerous and terrifying. And, get used to it, because that's not going to change.
No, and it shouldn't. And, with the mermaids being known as temptresses and everything, there is a romanticism with them within Hollywood, within cartoons like The Little Mermaid, and so on and so forth. I mean, they have projected this romance around them. So I don't think you could get around that. It's much like in the last 20 years, Hollywood has really defined aliens for the most part as being very
They've become
evil
romanticized.
species.
Yes, very much so. And I actually embrace that. I like all the iconography of the mermaid and the evolution and de-evolution of the mermaid, but I do like to think about it on other levels. But the romanticism doesn't necessarily bother me. I think it's, I think it's great. I think that I have been in the sea enough and done enough diving and swimming to know how quickly you get disoriented, how quickly the kelp can look like hair, how quickly you think you're next to your diving partner and they're, 500 meters away, how quickly things change in the sea. And the stories that we have are of people who have survived those situations and are retelling them in allegorical ways, metaphorical ways, or just retelling them as they saw them, because of the experience they had. And so it's not unlike somebody having an alien abduction story. You don't, at first you kind of tell it in careful ways because you don't want anybody to think you're crazy. And then finally you just say, all right, okay, so actually what I really saw was a mermaid. and I think it saved me.
No, mermaids, hey, people have seen them. They've seen them in all waters, cold and warm and tropical. I know Vancouver has very, very cold water, yet right around the British Columbia coast, there are lots of reports of mermaids coming around over the years. And it's not that far away. You know, we're not going back a couple hundred years. We're going back maybe 50 years.
Yeah.
Or less.
Absolutely.
People are still seeing this.
And even anytime you have a body of water, whether it's a large body of water like a loch, or you have a river or the ocean, the sea, there are always spirits associated with that. You know, you might have a well that has good water, and if the well starts to dry, you make an offering to the fairies that overlook that well. I mean, these are kind of these safeguard measures that people take all around the world. It's not just about whether or not you turn on your faucet. So anytime you have a body of water, you might have serpents or other kind of magical creatures. You may have mermaids. You may have other kind of guardian spirits. And it makes sense because we rely on water. We rely on water to survive. And so because of that, it completely makes sense that these are places, just as with mountains and our association, or the forest and our association with these other animals that live there and beings that are out there. Those things are sacred, and water, because it is such a sacred thing, you know, we take it for granted. We get it in plastic bottles, which we then chuck into the water. It's like, guys, this isn't working. But we take for granted how much we really, really need that. And it makes perfect sense to have something that watches over that and that is associated with that and may guard it fiercely. It may guard it fiercely. You may be at risk if you go, dabbling around and trying to, suck something out of the lake you shouldn't.
Germs, man. Germs. That's what it comes down to. Terrible germs.
People.
Yes. Don't drink that water. Don't drink that water. Unless you got one of them filtration systems. I watched a guy do that in the river one day when I was fishing. I was like grossed right out. I totally was.
You're like, don't you know what I just did upstream, brother?
I was totally. No, I never did that. But I was totally grossed out. I'm fishing beside this guy in the river. And all of a sudden he pulls out one of them charcoal. It's like a thick straw. Yeah. But it's got a filtration system. Oh, God. Yeah. And he just started drinking the water right there. And I damn near heaved.
Well, I had a water bottle that did that, and I drank out of a stream in the middle of Machu Picchu, actually. And I while I was doing it, I thought, I don't know how good of an idea this is, but the guy at REI is going to pay the price if this thing doesn't filter it out the way you said it was gonna. And I was fine. I drank Machu Picchu water. It was totally awesome.
Yes. Well, I'm not taking that chance.
Right?
Although there are streams around here on top of the mountains where you can just go dip your.
Oh, here where I live too. You could, if you go out just a little ways in Lake Superior, you could just, dip your cup right in there. Pretty beautiful.
Just don't do that in Flint. That's for sure. Don't do that in Flint.
That's nowhere near the big lake, so.
Exactly. Either way, Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on... I know, that was bad. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Her website, Spaced Out Radio. Oh, that's my website.
That's your
her website, varlaventura.net. She's got me all flustered here. I know there's some questions lining up. I will get to those with Varla, and we're going to wrap it up with some vampiruses. Is that even a word? Well,
sure.
If not, it is
now.
tonight. It is tonight. Varla Ventura, everybody, on Spaced Out Radio, coming up in Hour 3.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at Kajans.com.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com. A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thieme. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and we have some cool swag for you to pick up. All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the story you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today. We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates. Our brand new one in Bellingham, Washington, KZAX 94.9 FM, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, WQEE 99.1 FM in Newnan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we're proud to broadcast on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Remember, all of our archives are free, along with viewing us live now on YouTube at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam, who's celebrating a birthday tonight, has set the password in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Plerophory. Plerophory is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam is set the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and much, much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce Varla Ventura, who comes in every couple of months to talk about all things weird, strange, folklorish, legendary. Her website, varlaventura.net. You can find all of her books on Amazon. Varla, welcome back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're glad to have you here. We are. I love it when you come on in.
Not make you regret that.
All right. Good. All right, here. Let's see here. Let's get to some questions because I know some audience members are waiting. Nikki is asking, Varla, what's your take on mermaids, which may be alien?
Well, I mean, certainly the Atlantis theory is that there's some kind of, mingling of off-planet and ancient mermaids. But I don't necessarily think, I feel like mermaids are of this planet and are part of this planet and have evolved simultaneously with us. So I guess when I think of aliens, I think of, creatures that live on other planets. So I consider mermaids part of our planet because they live underworld. I know there's some theories about aliens kind of coming here and creating mermaids or creating a hybrid race, and that being kind of becoming Atlantis, and then them being expedited off planet in order to save them or preserve them from the doom of mankind and things like that. And I don't really believe that. I guess is what I'm saying. Edgar Casey, rest in peace.
All right, let's move on to Greco here on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. He is asking, are there male sirens? Do they look and sound like your favorite hair band?
Oh, yeah, Freddie Mercury right there, ultimate siren. Well, just to be perfectly clear, we use those terms interchangeably, sirens and mermaids, and we do use them interchangeably, and they are often a siren of the sea. Technically, a siren would be part bird and part woman versus a mermaid, which is part fish and part fish and part woman. But as far as the idea that both of them are able to enchant with their voice, there are absolutely accounts of men doing that. There are many mermen that are usually, mermen traditionally in like a lot of the Irish folklore, they are pretty sort of loathsome and dangerous, but there are other accounts and certainly of men that have the same kind of quality to their voice. So it's not exclusive to women, but I think it is more largely associated with, and I shouldn't even say women, I should say female or the feminine.
All right. Let's go over to Andrew's question on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Varla, could the stories of mermaids come from the ancient concept of Venus, the Roman goddess of love, sex, and beauty? She mythically rose from the froth of the sea. Is there a connection?
Oh, yes. And I think that you see other depictions in earlier cultures of something sort of on a seashell or on a kind of rising out of the sea. And I do think that speaks to the idea that we evolved from and came out of the sea. So sorry, creationists. I'm going to go with the evolution side here. And we evolved from, these single cell organisms. So yeah, I think that, but the ancient Greeks were, they weren't the earliest believers in the kind of life frothing forth from the sea. We have very, very very early depictions of an Assyrian goddess, Astragatis, who came from a kind of situation where she was human and then did something she wasn't supposed to and hid herself partially in the sea, but continually returned. That legend, I think, could be unpacked quite a bit because I do think there's a lot of feminine shame involved in that story where she did something adulterous and so was banished to the sea. I think mermaids evolved from that.
All right, let's move on to vampires and vampiresses because, well, you wanted to, so let's just go there. How about that?
Let's just do it.
Female vampires.
Yeah, it's interesting because vampires of the magical creatures, with the exception of maybe werewolves, vampires are very often associated more with sort of the divine male than the divine feminine. You think of you think of Dracula and these kind of iconic vampires that have evolved over the last 100 years or 200 years in our popular culture, and they're frequently associated with men, very attractive, very alluring men. But there's a lot of connection with, again, that sort of fearsome and confusing blackness of the divine feminine that you can see in vampire legends. So one of my favorite vampire stories is this wonderful story that was written in, I think, the early 1800s, and it's about a priest. It's incredibly risque, actually, and it was published first in French and wasn't published in English for another 20 or 30 years. And even then, I have a feeling that the way that they sort of translated it, they downplayed it a bit. But essentially, this priest, at the moment when he is about to take his vow to serve God eternally, feels this breeze in the church, and the door opens, and this woman walks in. Her name is Clairemont, and she is this incredibly beautiful woman who the priest takes his vows anyway, and he continues to be completely obsessed with her. And spoiler alert, in the end, the whole time not the whole time, but in the end, she's dead. And it's basically, there's some like little bit of necromancy, a little bit of necrophilia going on there with this priest who becomes completely obsessed. That is one of the earliest written vampire stories that we have in kind of more modern times. I think there's a lot of people that I know. Now, I'm not as into vampires as some people I know. I've got some like real diehard living vampire friends, and they'll talk to you about some other goddesses, such as Lilith, who is this beautiful goddess who is associated with the darkness, and you might think of Lilith Fair actually when you think of Lilith, but that is named for the goddess because she is darkness and beauty and feminine and very empowering to women, and is pretty frequently depicted with pale skin and dark hair, in a way that we think of vampires. Some people say she's a demon, and we have heard that, as long as women have heard that as long as they've been alive, that you're demonic or a temptress, and Lilith sort of embodies all of those things. And so many vampires and ideas of vampires, of female vampires, came from this idea of a succubus, of a didn't we talk about a succubus the last time I was on?
Yes.
You had a friend who had a succubus in his life.
Oh yeah, she was horrible.
I think that what I have learned from the modern vampire community is not unlike what I have learned from the any kind of like the modern bondage community. And that is that in order to have a succubus, right, in order to feed upon someone, one must have a donor. And so with the idea of a vampire kind of taking from someone, someone has to be willing to give that. Now, there's irresponsibility, right? So there can be people who are unwielding with their power and kind of, taking the life energy or the blood or whatever it is without consent. But when you think about, in particular, the blood aspect of vampires and the idea, so women are not, and I'm going to just say this, women are not as obsessed with blood as men are, because we bleed all the time. So we're used to it. So we don't have quite the obsession with it, and yet we do understand that it is associated with a very sacred time and a real cycle that surrounds the moon. And so vampires and the idea that you're taking blood really, I think, goes down to the association with blood as something that is sacred and feminine. So at the core, there is something incredibly feminine about vampires in general, be they male or female. And I don't think a male vampire, at least the ones I know, they won't argue against that. They have embraced that femininity in a way that sometimes makes other people uncomfortable, but really does speak to trying to create that balance within oneself. So there we went.
Yeah. Well, do you believe then that the female side of the vampire, can we call it a syndrome or lifestyle or however we want to call it? You know, when we look at everything, we always think back to Dracula, and we know the real version of that until Bram Stoker came out with the original. But we never hear much in history about the female vampiress taunting people, and especially men and maybe even young lads, to try and take their own lives, to bring them into the other side as well.
Well, now the what we think of as Dracula, the character of Dracula, is based essentially on two legends. One is Vlad the Impaler, who was this fearsome, landowner and baron who was a warrior and would spike his enemies' heads on a pike outside his gates. The other legend that comes from the same part of the world, from sort of the Transylvanian area, is Madame Bathory, and she is a woman who was said. So let me preface this by saying that she was a woman who inherited a fortune, a very large fortune, and was by blood rights entitled to this fortune above many other men in her family because of the ways that, not because women were allowed to inherit, but because her own lineage trumped these outlying cousins or whatever who were men. And she inherited essentially an entire estate and had quite a bit of power. Now, it's said that she was very mean to all of her servants and that she continually lured young women to the castle, abused them, and drained their blood and bathed herself in the blood in order to, because she was very beautiful and very vain, and that she bathed herself in the blood to sort of elevate her own status and make herself more beautiful and youthful. Okay, I have heard that story in the story of her for years and years and years. And about 5 years ago, I read something about her, and it just made me realize, wait a second, I read that she was wealthy. I had never heard, she was a madam. I had never realized that she was due to inherit so much. Now, if history tells us anything, and if we've learned anything from the witch trials, anytime a woman has a great deal of money or wealth, historically, it's quick. What you do is you say that she poxed your child, or she ruined your crops, and then you find the evidence against her. This is pretty much, in my opinion, what happened to Madame Bathory. She was arrested eventually for being this murderess, and she was confined to a castle. And I believe the story is that she was walled up in a castle and eventually died there. Now, I don't know if that part of how she died is absolutely true, but there are holes in the story that I never noticed when I was younger, and I was kind of thinking about this like horrible serial killer. And I thought, I know a lot of people that haven't, maybe they didn't quite fit into society. And then the next thing you know, someone's accusing them of shoplifting, or they're the ones who set the barn on fire, but it wasn't them. But there's just enough doubt about their character that you can accuse them of that. So now I start thinking, wait a second, Madame Bathory, the queen, the head of all, vampires, like this bloodthirsty murderess, she might have been set up. She could have just gotten a bad rap. So I started kind of thinking about that legend in a very different way, and I'm sure there's more to discover there. And I'm sure other people have had this same train of thought. But it's interesting because I think that, so what we think of as the modern Dracula, and I like to think of Bela Lugosi myself, but we have this modern Dracula, the legend of Dracula. I've read the book hundreds of times. It's like literally hundreds of times. It's it's this kind of combination. We know this about Bram Stoker's upbringing and what he studied and what he was looking at. We know that he was looking at these two legends from this area, and he sort of merged them together. And for me to look at that idea of this madam in a totally different light, and it completely realizing, I'm just staying on topic here with the women's history, that just to completely realize that this bloodthirsty, it just makes you look back at things like all of the werewolf legends where you hear that somebody, someone went into a murderous rage and tore their spouse limb for limb, and they must have been a werewolf. Werewolves and vampires were often, it was the same scapegoat as being a witch. It's just not as well known. But you could be accused of being a witch, or you could be accused of being a vampire or a werewolf or another supernatural creature, and that would give the entire village carte blanche to chase you down. And I think that happened frequently with vampires and women in particular.
Are there female vampires?
Wait.
Okay.
Let me get down off my soapbox. Hold on. Okay,
all right.
I'm off my soapbox. I'm good.
We only got about 2 minutes left, so I'm glad you didn't trip and fall and maybe injure a pinky toe or something like that when you were coming on down. But are there? Never mind the people who are acting this vampire lifestyle. Do you believe there are male and female vampires that are real out there right now?
I've met them. And I'm not talking about the friends that I have that are into it in a ritualistic and magical way. I have met them, and so have you. You all have. You have encountered someone who has left you completely drained, and yet somebody that, for whatever reason, you rely upon them in your life. These are vampires. One thing that I really discovered about vampires in researching for the book was the idea of the psychic vampire and the spiritual vampire, which is, metaphorically sucking your life energy and your lifeblood out of you. And responsible vampires know this about themselves and approach others in a way that says, hey, this is who I am. Are you the kind of person that wants to give to a person like me? But there's a lot of sort of rogue, unawakened, I guess is how you'd look at it, vampires out there who are just there. They can't live without you, and yet they can't sustain you. So they will, and we've all been in situations like that where you're just completely exhausted. You don't know what it is. You don't know what you did. You thought you had a productive conversation, or you thought you were going to go into it, with something in mind. And for many of us, it could be, employers or partners. There's a lot of that. So, yeah, I think because just that evidence alone in my own personal life and daily life has convinced me that vampires are real. Can you drive a stake through their heart? No, you can't do that, Dave.
Oh, well, too bad. Varla, thank you. I know. Varla, what a pleasure. We will talk to you at the beginning of May as you come on every couple of months. I look forward to that. VarlaVentura.net is your website. You were amazing again tonight, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. More Spaced Out Radio coming up.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thieme. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans! It's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docuseries featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and Bigfoot in the forest. Truth seekers like Steve Bassett, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Richard Dolan, as well as others all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, welcoming all of you to us. I want to remind all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Yeah, we got lots of things going on. Back to YouTube for a second. If you are listening outside, you want to check out our show live. We are now broadcasting live on YouTube. This is night number 2 now. Night number 2. All right. I realize that I'm not a pretty man. Probably shouldn't be on camera. However, the masses wanted it, and I always listen to the masses. Here we go with the news. The news is always changing, and that's why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the wacky, and the sometimes awesome. Nashville-based guitar maker Gibson wants to help musicians impacted by the deadly tornadoes that struck Middle Tennessee earlier this week. Gibson Gives, a nonprofit wing of the global guitar brand, plans to donate guitars to players with damaged or destroyed instruments as a result of the early Tuesday storm. Guitarists needing instrument replacement can reach Gibson Gives recovery plan at donation.request at gibson.com. Guitars will be provided at Gibson's sole discretion based on proof of damage or loss, the release said. Replacement guitars may be demo models, prototypes, or shop worn across Gibson's family brand of guitars. A 126-year-old company, Gibson crafts popular electronic guitars. Electronic, who writes that? Electric guitars, such as the famous Les Paul and the SG. How can you not forget put it right? What about the Explorer? Gorgeous guitar. Yeah, well, they're based out of Southside Nashville. The brand migrated primary offices last July to Cummings Station, so they weren't affected, but they want to help out anybody who is lacking a guitar due to that horrific natural tragedy. Sales of bidets have soared by 500% amid the coronavirus toilet paper shortage, says businesses. Bosses at Australian Bidets reported the huge increase in traffic to their website as supermarkets ran out of supplies. The increase in sales comes as thousands of shoppers rush to supermarkets to stock up on groceries. So far, 56 people have been diagnosed with coronavirus, with 2 people dying in the country. Oh, that's terrible. I've never used a bidet. That just does not look like fun. It doesn't. Managing Director of Australian Bidets, Randall Colby, said, "It's crazy. We've also been getting a lot of phone calls, which have resulted in some sales. People are really looking for alternative options." He said his bidets range from $300 to $30,000. You got to be blanking me right now. However, the most affordable electronic option, oh great, there's an electronic, I can't even speak to this one. There's an electronic option, really, that washes your bum? Well, it sits at $500. Most are simply extensions which can be attached and plugged in by the existing toilet. Mr. Colby said when you compare that to how much you would spend on toilet paper per year, it isn't an over-the-top option. He said the whole idea is to wash your bottom rather than scrub the mess, meaning it's more hygienic. Bidets are also an environmentally sound option. Washing with a bidet only uses 1 cup of water, while manufacturing a single roll of toilet paper uses 10 liters. He says the demographic of buyers has changed since he started in the business 16 years ago. Back then, the customer profile was mostly elderly or disabled people who needed a carer to wipe them, so they would have more independence. Now, people want it as a lifestyle change in order to make sure they are hygienic and healthy. They also want that nice, clean, fresh feeling. Yeah, Colby went on to say using a bidet is a life-changing... Oh, come on. It is not a life-changing experience. Watching your child being born is a life-changing experience. Yeah, having someone you love pass away is a life-changing experience. Winning the lottery is a life-changing experience. Not buying a bloody bidet. He goes, once you have tried one of these things, you will never go back. It's like a shower, he said. No, I'm not going there. I am not. You know what? See ya. Colby, you're lying to the media. You're taking advantage of people. Sticking in Australia. Now, this is brilliant. I'm not going to lie. This is brilliant. Australian authorities are asking for help in identifying a man who stole a $700 gold Versace necklace by using his fishing rod. Oh, man, this is awesome. Now, I don't advocate crime, but if you are that good at casting a fishing rod, you deserve the necklace. So the big thing here is Victoria Police released new images and footage captured on CCTV that show a suspect robbing a high-end fashion store in Melbourne using a fishing rod to reel in the necklace off a mannequin. Do you recognize this man? We believe he used a fishing rod to commit a burglary on a high-end fashion store in Melbourne, authorities tweeted. Watch. The security footage shows a man using a fishing rod to remove a Versace necklace from a mannequin within the store just after 2 a.m. Police say the burglary occurred on Little Collins Street, because we all know where that is, located in Melbourne's central business district. The man first broke the store window before using the rod to fish out the necklace. In the video, the suspect wears a blue Lonsdale sweater with gray tracksuit pants and blue sneakers. According to police, the suspect was fishing for nearly 3 hours before he landed his catch. Victoria authorities later said to the media that the suspect failed to steal the necklace during the first attempt with a small rod. He then came back with a bigger rod and eventually secured the expensive piece. He is Caucasian, about 5'9", short, fair receding hair, terrible hair, let's be honest, between 40 and 50 years old. Fairly blatant and quite bold as well to have someone attend with a fishing rod in the middle of the night, police have said. You know what? He didn't even wear a mask. Pretty obvious that this guy's going to get identified. Okay, let's get to the crazy. Nick Wallenda walked 1,800 feet along a steel high wire over the active Masaya volcano in Nicaragua on live television. The 41-year-old member of the famed Flying Wallendas made the death-defying feat, walking across the volcano's active lava lake. Masaya is one of only 8 volcanoes in the world that has an active lava lake and generates heat at about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,100 degrees Celsius. The daredevil started walking across, which was broadcast on ABC, by proclaiming, "I'm going," just after 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah. This is just dumb. Okay, the good part about it was he was on a safety harness. Okay, he had a mask on because, there's some deadly toxins there. But these photos are incredible. You can go to the SOR Newswire on our website. Check them out. This is just incredible. Dumb, absolutely dumb, but incredible. He was attached the whole time to a safety harness and had to pass through foggy conditions that required tracking his movements with special thermal cameras. In addition, he performed while having to stomach the egg-like smell toxic sulfur dioxide emanating from the lava, which can burn the eyes and lungs and cause dizziness. "My eyes did start to burn," he admitted, even though he was wearing goggles for protection. "Thank God they didn't start to fog up." He also ran the risk of being burned by corrosive acid created when water vapor mixes with the sulfur dioxide. "It's kind of ridiculous what you have to do to get a good view of a volcano these days," he said, nearly 5 minutes into the walk, going down a 60-foot drop before bottoming out halfway through the stunt. This is just crazy. Who does this? I'm sorry, but who does this? Anyways, took him about 31 minutes. His wife gave him a big hug and kiss on the back end of this. Yeah, thinking how brave he is. Yeah, no. During the tight walk performance, he kept on saying how the view was amazing and praised his maker for carrying him through this experience. "I don't know how you can't glorify God," he said. "It's unbelievable." Moving on. A suburban St. Louis man accused of live streaming threats to bomb and kill people in a bustling entertainment district while dressed as the Batman villain Joker has been charged with terrorism. Jeremy Garnier of University City was charged with a felony count of making a terrorist threat. A judge ordered Garnier, 48 years old, held without bail, with court documents noting that he was a danger to the community. Court records did not list an attorney who can speak on his behalf, though. The charging document doesn't indicate whether he was in possession of any explosives or was otherwise armed. And the prosecutor's office didn't immediately return phone calls to the media. Police responded Monday night to the Blueberry Hill restaurant and music club in the Delmar Loop neighborhood after receiving a call about an active shooter. According to the charging document, charges said Garnier was making threats while dressed as the Joker. And you know what? Honestly, he did a bad job dressing as the Joker. They should throw him in jail just for the bad paint job that he did on his face. Not even good. It's pretty easy to tell that he's not the Joker. Anyways, he live streamed for nearly an hour, posting it to the Facebook account. Jeremy Joseph Garnier shows a man dressed as a Joker, complete with makeup, which was terrible, like I just told you, talking to the camera in a bedroom where he was putting on a costume. He's later seen driving his car, smoking a pipe, and going to the St. Louis Galleria shopping mall in Richmond Heights, where he stopped by security and asked to leave. The video then shows him talking about ending the country's opioid epidemic before he enters the venue and orders a soda. Wow, you think he might have been on some opioids for this, but we'll never know. Anyways, he's in jail. He was handcuffed and was still live streaming when he was handcuffed by police. Okay. Residents of a small village in Italy are loving this. They have had their taps in their houses dispensing red wine instead of water due to a fault at a nearby winery. Locals in the village of Sedicani said the taps in their kitchens and bathrooms were dispensing red liquid instead of water Wednesday, and many quickly identified it from the smell as Lambrusco Grasperosa, a local-produced wine. Officials at the winery said technicians investigated and discovered a technical fault had caused wine to leak from a silo into water pipes. The high pressure of the wine leak was enough to displace the water in the pipes, resulting in the spilled alcoholic beverage entering the water supply and the home's nearby residents. The local water board dispatched technicians who were able to repair the issue, causing fresh water to flow again through the pipes. The local council apologized to the residents. Apologize for what? You should be apologizing for turning it off. This is a dream come true for every woman in that town. Some residents even said they bottled as much of the wine that they could that came from the taps as possible before the water flow returned to normal. That's what the city should be apologizing about. An Oregon woman is suing Chuck E. Cheese for negligence after getting her hair caught in a ticket machine for 20 minutes. As Shriana Scott filed the suit against the pizza and entertainment chain, citing pain, discomfort, distress, and headaches after the ordeal at the restaurant in Portland last year. The incident unfolded when Scott visited Chuck E. Cheese brand near downtown Portland. Scott said she was feeding the tickets into a machine to exchange them for prizes when her hair got caught up in the equipment. She claimed she was stuck in a machine for 20 minutes without any assistance from the company before a Chuck E. Cheese employee finally came to her rescue and freed her from it. Scott is now suing Texas-based CEC Entertainment, also known as the Chuck E. Cheese Family Run Center, for damages after the incident caused her injuries, including pain, discomfort, distress, and headaches. Defendant failed to use responsible care in the design and layout of this ticket counting machine to ensure that guests like the plaintiff would not get their hair caught in the... You got to be kidding me. This is what her lawyer, Michael Fuller, wrote. As well as negligence. Who? Who's negligent here? How about having a stupid client, Mike? You have a stupid client. Anyways, the suit claims that the restaurant failed to train staff on how to respond to a situation. How do you train for stupidity? You cannot... People. Anyways, the lady wants $1,000 as well as a jury trial and the installation of warning signs next to machine. You know what? I hope a judge throws this out. I really, really do. Because there's too much stupid in this world, don't you think? Let's get to it. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air. Why? I don't know, because we love reading your stories here. Sure, what the hell? It's not like we're going to get sued for sticking our hair in a game. Oh my God, there's a lot of stupid out there. I really hope a judge throws that out. You know, that's like the lady a few years ago who won a lawsuit against McDonald's for their coffee being too hot because she spilled it on herself. I don't get it. Anyways, let's get to the thought of the day. What is your favorite monster comedy movie and why? You know, mine is, remember Transylvania 65000? It had like an all-star cast. Kramer from Seinfeld was in there. It was Gina Davis's first ever movie. Jeff Goldblum was in there. That movie was hilarious. Hilarious. All of you are probably rushing. What the hell is Transylvania 65000? Had a very catchy song. Do 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 do. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did. That's my favorite. Of course, that didn't come up today. No. Instead, we got bidet talk. All right, let's get to it. Anthony, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. I love that a bunch of classics. #Universal Monsters are involved. Audra on Twitter. Young Frankenstein is a hilarious family favorite. Why? Because it's funny. Roy, Dracula, Dead and Loving It with Leslie Nielsen. Classic comedy. Anything with Leslie Nielsen was classic comedy. Lots of laughs, and the idiotic bumbling of the servant Renfield takes the show. Amazingly dark, but clean comedy for the entire family. Serena, Godzilla movies count as comedy, right? Oh, yeah. In my world, they do. And then she goes on, because they're hilarious, totally compensatory fantasy watching a dude in a rubber suit smash small buildings, something I've contemplated a time or two when frustrated with humanity. Eric with a K, this is his fourth favorite show, by the way. How about Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein with an appearance from the Dogman, Dracula, and the Invisible Man at the end. Marilyn loves Heart Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Oh, that's nice. Very, very nice. Okay. Tim, Young Frankenstein, it's a classic with little touches. The hump changes sides on Igor's back, Frau Blucher, and the horse whinnying in the background. The blind man serving soup to the creature never stops. Joel's got great hair, by the way. Fantastic beard, too. Met him at UFOCon. UFO Garage is his podcast. Check it on out. Because who knew Bigfoot was such a comedian? He puts up a picture of Harry and the Hendersons. Robert, Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy has a great sense of humor. Little Richie G, The Gremlins. It had everything. Comedy, cuteness, suspense, action, and death. Debbie, she loved The Goonies. Sherry, I always loved Shaun of the Dead. Chris, Aliens in the Attic. It was just cute and funny. V.E., The Monster Squad. That was a good one. Kick 'em in the nards. Dogman or Wolfman don't have nards. Kick 'em in the nards anyways. Yeah. The Crypto Guru, Monster Squad, Shaun of the Dead, American Werewolf in London, and Evil Dead are all classics. Merle, The Monster Squad reason, it's a funny comedy about paranormal investigating from the 80s. It's what started my curiosity in the paranormal. Thanks, Merle. Nick, Ernest Scared Stupid. Why? Well, apart from Ernest being hilarious, you have trolls, a swamp hag, Tom and Bobby, great practical effects, and a pizza throwing machine. William, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Tony, what a set of... I don't get that one. English. Got to write in English. Chanel, I was at the theater watching Pet Sematary with my best friend in high school, and we laughed through it so loudly we were asked to leave. Gil, Carry On Screaming, and Abbott and Costello. Larry, Killer Tomatoes from Outer Space. Kelly, Critters, it was the 80s Shockley movie personified. Matt, Army of Darkness. William, Young Frankenstein for sure. And that's about it. We'll do it all again tomorrow on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you so much for participating, and thank you, Captain Shirk, for writing it up on the SOR Newswire. Thanks to Varla Ventura as well. She'll be on in May once again. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Little Brother is Watching is our theme song, because we get to rock out each and every night to the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Everybody in our chat rooms on Facebook, Spreaker, LGAB, Revolution Radio, the SOR Space Travelers Club on our website, and all the snarkers and snarkettes on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Can't forget you YouTubers as well. Thank you so much. Hey, I want to remind you that this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Limited. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Because together, my friends, say it with me, I want to hear you. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.